Hello? Hey. Can you hear me?
There we go.
Yeah.
I gave it till quarter after, then I dipped. So the recording is gonna have 15 minutes of me staring at the screen,
Oh, no.
and then a few minutes of nothing. How goes it?
Good. Yeah.
So it's probably just gonna be us today. I have a bit of an agenda that I wrote down.
Okay.
The first one is pretty simple, and it's just I was gonna talk with the group about the cadence of this meeting because it seems like we're not getting, very often it's just been Thomas and I or nobody or just a couple of us. So I wonder if we need to either just keep it at a month and if people show up, it's fine, like it's not a big deal, but I'd like to get more attention. I'd like to get more folks showing up. So if we did every 2 weeks, we tried for like a couple of months to just do it every 2 weeks. Maybe it's a timing thing for people.
I think there's a couple things. The increased frequency, we established that to get to 2.0, and there's a lot of things to figure out to get there. So that's why we increased the frequency of the meetings originally. Originally, it was just once a month. Yeah, me and Thomas. Yeah. So before Thomas joined the project, it was still just once a month. But when Thomas joined, we felt like it was necessary because there were so many conversations going on about 2.0. Yeah. I think another thing too is that we lost like about half the contributors are interested because of Monaco. Right. Yeah. So half the people wanted to contribute towards Monaco when we didn't give them Monaco for 2.0. I mean, we kind of chose that path, and I think it was still a good choice. But I think it led to people feeling like, oh, well, now Monaco is never going to be part of graphical, that kind of I hear that kind of will it ever be that kind of a question, which has me wondering, like, did we not make it clear that we still plan to support Monaco? Like somehow we made it seem like that's not the plan. And so I think some people got kind of disillusioned over that as potential contributors. But I think if we show that the 3.0 roadmap has Monaco, like the jump to Monaco is part of it, and that's why we have to break some of the graphical props API, I think that will attract new attention again. But I think people just have to know that's on the roadmap, because if it's not, that's like half or more of our contributors are not going to be interested.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, I'm a little bit disillusioned myself because we started, August was launch for 2, and then September, and I guess it was October where we started just talking about what the next version was going to be, right? And then the October meeting was Postman folks. It was like a decent group. Patrick was here, and we sort of narrowed down what we were going to do. We decided like we're definitely going to start looking at Monaco. I don't think in October we were like version 3 specifically. We were just like, here's the next features that we wanted to focus on. It was Monaco. And there was additional enthusiasm, and I would say equivalent enthusiasm for the plugin API, which is sort of, they don't go hand in hand, but they were like just 2 big ones that were left out, right? And the third kind of big feature that was left out was the visual operation builder, right? There's a lot of folks that are also excited about that. So those were the big 3. And we decided in October that we would try to take a stab at Monaco. And that's a big job.
Yeah. It was easier before, like transitioning the old repo to Monaco was just a few steps, but now with the graphical React thing, it's a lot more work.
Yeah. And so I just wonder, like, who's who has the time to do that outside of the context of their full-time job. Like, I don't even know if there's a lot of folks that are using graphical 2.0 with enough of a need, like people that are using graphical 2.0 in a product with enough of a need to dedicate significant resources to the Monaco side of things. So the question is, like, can we get it done in open source land? Can we get it done?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know. I'm hopeful, but I also like I know a little bit about what it takes to get it integrated. Not all, I don't know everything, but I know enough that it's, I mean, and this
I
is
think
why,
part
like,
of the problem is we had to make graphical React a little more complicated than it would have needed to be if we had done it with Monaco.
totally.
And that's okay. But I think we can still get there. I think maybe we can find some ways to simplify graphical React in the process too.
Well, I took a stab at, there's that PR that has the alternative state management in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's like a whole nother discussion that should probably happen in context of Monaco, because it's the biggest. I mean, even the plugin manager, like, there's so much that could go there, but that's just another slice of work that we need to build independently of Monaco and the plugin API and the visual operation builder. So
yeah, I still think it's important to work on. I see it as a preliminary step, and to the Monaco effort, I guess. Yeah.
So we're just jumping ahead here in the agenda, but that was just a status of how the Monaco editor integration situation was here on the agenda. Like, basically we just need human bodies that care enough. This is the classic problem, right? This is nothing new. We need human bodies that care enough. I think what the work that we've been talking about out of graphical context, but in Monaco GraphQL context, is going to be super valuable for this, right? It's just work that needs to get done anyway. Monaco GraphQL, the web workers, additional examples, and I think that might help bring a lot of attention. If we get these in as examples, this might help bring some attention back to the repository. Let's close out this working group meeting cadence discussion. Should we, I mean, I'm willing to show up here every 2 weeks and stare at the screen for 15 minutes if that means that we think it might allow a little more, like, more people to just possibly show up and get involved, even if it's not like, even if we're not talking absolute specifics, if there's other people that we can talk to and just explain what's going on. I'm just trying to, like, offer more of a like a hole for people to jump into and get involved, because Discord is great, but we're also not getting, there's just also not a lot of conversation there. Maybe we're still people coming off the holidays. Maybe it's, I'm not entirely sure. I'm just trying to think of
also a recession. I noticed in like spring of 2020 when the pandemic hit and there was a big initial wave of layoffs and recessions and whatnot, we had almost no activity, and we went from like our activity dropped by probably about 200%, and it hasn't really fully recovered yet. Like, you think we used to have a lot more activity in our repo. I don't know if it was just because things were a little bit there was still a lot more work that needed to be done or what, but there was just not as many things reported. Now we still get the like instant bug reports and things like that are helpful, but just one of the helpful aspects of having a very high usage repo to maintain. But yeah, like, I don't know. We still get a lot of involvement, but it's the amount of people that are approaching us saying like, hey, I'd like to contribute has reduced a lot. And yeah, I don't know what other factors there are behind that. I think some of it is DevRel related of like, are we putting out the feelers to show we want to attract more people to help? Or do people think that you and Thomas were the new people to help, and that we found the people, like, I don't know if people know what graphical needs, or the graphical needs more contribution.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that seems like that's a good lead, because me and you and Thomas and I last year there was a long period even before I came along where there was just a lot of activity. Tim was super involved, right, with getting 2.0 off the ground and getting it delivered. And maybe you're right. Maybe there just isn't a lot of eyeballs on the repo because people think that it's getting taken care of. I would like to suggest again that maybe we just need to send a message to Benji and say, hey, can we get this on the larger working groups radar just to bring up for like a 5-minute chat in the big meeting?
We don't even need to ask him that. We can just add an agenda item for the next one on Thursday. So
I'll do that.
yeah, so we can add an agenda item for that. One other thing I think is going to be important to make Monaco support less painful. The state manager the new state manager implementation when Monaco is adopted, it just needs to make extensive use of text model. And I think it'll save so much more effort than trying to manage everything in state and memory instead of using the text model for memory state. So like the Monaco text model.
Yeah, I mean, it's required because of the tab.
Yes, but I think the problem is you often see people go editor set value instead of model set value.
Yeah.
And so this is something that will save a lot more time, because then with something like Zustand, you can just say get model from URI, set value, for every edit and things like that, instead of actually having to access the editor instance every time. And then models can switch between editors if needed, but you should have one editor instance for all tabs. So when you switch between the tabs, it changes the model. Yeah.
Yep.
But,
I went over the prototype code in detail this morning, actually, with some folks on the graph-based team. And so that's fresh in my memory. That's the way that the prototype is built. There's code out there that does exactly that, but it, like you're saying, it relies on a non-context state management solution. It needs a place to live that's global app state, and that's something that we don't have in graphical right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good point, though.
Yeah, I would just want to make sure that there's a good crossover there, because that was where we had some pain when transitioning to Monaco before, was with that. And we had to kind of make sure to go through and implement that again properly. But in that case, we just kept all the text models in context. And the text models don't log as changed by context when you actually change the values, because context can't observe a model, text model object for changes. So we would just use editor or model on change hook to register changes. So
were there tabs?
There were no tabs in this one yet. That's why it was so much easier. Yeah. But we had IETN, we had some other things, but we can do all that again. And IETN we can add without even a breaking change. So that's just time. We could start with just English and let people add languages as needed.
Yeah, I mean that's another one that's on the list, but wasn't part of like the big three that we discussed, but probably should be, especially if increasing adoption is something.
It was something we had on the roadmap for 2, so I feel like we should have everything.
Absolutely, I recognize that it was important in the past. I'm saying I'm admitting to us not giving it the import that it deserves.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Back in October when we were talking about like the big features.
It's something we often forget when we work in a company or vertical where translation isn't important. It's just like, yeah, that's a thing sometimes people need, but some people need it all the time. Some people can't use GraphQL because GraphiQL isn't translated. I know at IBM that was a requirement for a lot of things. Like, we can't use this technology if it's not available in multiple languages. So that was a baseline. But yeah, so cool. But yeah, no, I think that makes sense. So I think we could reduce the frequency of these meetings for now, and then start chiming in with the greater working group to bring more interest in.
Yeah, I'm gonna add that to the. I'm gonna put in the PR to add that to the agenda right now, and I want to say that we probably let's not reduce. I mean, once a month is fine. I'm happy to show up and just stick around for 15 minutes and be here. Because I'd rather not have to go to less and then have to come back to more. Like, this seems like a good cadence. I guess I'm just getting frustrated that there aren't a dozen people that are as excited about this shit as I am that are showing up,
Yeah,
So
I would say like having more than like anyone who's not a maintainer attend the call is like a big deal. Yeah. That's like, wow, we're really exciting now. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I would settle for 20% of the maintainers, honestly.
Yeah. So cool. Yeah, and so for the record, we're going to go on Thursday to talk more about the access issue so we can get back to releasing again. But we're trying to continue things either way without the ability to release. So I've been working on the pull request to migrate to Vite, and I made progress on your PR, Jonathan, and now I'm stuck on a special character. So I'm going to come back to that. Yeah.
I saw that.
It has to do with a function method in Reach that has a special character in it.
I saw it. I don't know why it's tuples. I don't know why there's a what's that character called over the E. I don't know why that's there. And I looked in the Reach repository and they don't use that character. Maybe I didn't search right. I don't think they use that character outside of that function name.
Yeah, it's just right in that one function name. Yeah, that's it. So like, the thing that bothers me is there's no one else that has this issue. So what I feel like is there must be something I'm doing with, like, there was a Vite plugin that I was using to get around some of the require issue, like the graphical WS require issue, and I can't seem to. I'm pretty sure that plugin is somehow causing this issue downstream. So I just have to figure out, just the order of build tooling. But my goal is to replace project references and Webpack, and to create some kind of harmony where I think, like, for example, with graphical React, I think we might actually have it almost working where it will use a different tool to build the library bundle called TSUp.
Yeah.
And we will use that to build the library bundle and then use Vite to build the whole bundle. That would be the goal. I think this is going to work, Because what I'm worried about is that the layers of Vite bundling are an issue. Another thing I want to bring up too is, does graphical React need to be bundled with its dependencies when it's being installed as an NPM module? It's a new trend I've seen where people are shipping modules that are installed via NPM with all their dependencies bundled, which feels like it defeats the purpose, because you have your bundlers automatically, or Node is automatically installing those dependencies anyways with NPM, right? So why do we bundle our library dependencies when the library dependencies have to be installed anyways? I guess is something it's a trend I'm seeing with ES Build and stuff, where it's super easy to bundle your library now, but we never bundled libraries before unless it was for like a browser bundle for a very specific reason. So this is something I've been wondering about, and because I notice it causes multiple issues, because we end up with a bundle of a bundle and the source maps break, everything, whereas when you ship the unbundled code where it's just the source files and the actual original file tree and everything, then you can much more easily debug and the source maps work and stuff. But yeah, just that was like the one thing I was wondering is, do we really need to use, like it's one thing to use browser targeting and tree shaking and things like that, but actually bundling all the dependencies is a whole nother step that I don't think we always need to use. So just as a thought.
So I'm looking at graphical React right now. Where is that? Where is it implicit that we're bundling?
Vite library mode, I think, does it. Because like if you look at the bundled output in dist, you see, a bunch, like React is made external, but you see like Reach libraries are all being bundled into the graphical React package. We don't need the Reach libraries to be bundled in. In fact, we shouldn't do the bundling, and we should let the consumer decide how to bundle those.
I think so. I agree, but I also think it would mean that we would need to let me see, GraphQL, React, and React DOM. So what's left? What's left is the Reach, the primitives, code mirror.
Yeah, so all those things get bundled in, right?
Yeah.
When we're already telling them to install code mirror when they install this package. So that means that they'll have these new dependencies installed, but the code never gets executed because we're shipping a bundled version. This causes a lot of confusion in other projects too. And I think it causes us like 2 times as many issues as we normally have, because now we're dealing with the issue of bundling other dependencies and shipping a library bundle with bundled dependencies.
So are you suggesting that that one step, like the one initial step here would be to replace in graphical React, replace Vite with TS up, and that would allow us to set the dev script and the build scripts to not have to build graphical React, not have to watch for changes, which would then reduce. I'm trying to wrap my brain around.
Well, it would still need to watch for changes. Well, there's different ways to do it. We can configure the Vite bundle to work in monorepo mode, where it will automatically import the source files of the bundles. It's the internal libraries from the monorepo. So that's one approach to that. But I think what I'm talking about is just for the Vite config for now, for example, it would just be to switch ESBuild to bundle false. So it'd be library mode, but with bundling disabled. So, let's see if I can find anything on it. Yeah, so there's an issue on this. Or, I don't know if it's even supposed to bundle in library mode, so we might have a bug looking at this.
Well, we could externalize all of the dependencies, right? In the rollup options list, if we just had all the dependencies as external.
That's really not what you should do, though, because we need to tell ESBuild to not bundle.
Right, because that's the npm package.
Yeah, because otherwise we'll be swimming up river. We'll be saying bundle, but leave everything out, and then we have to manually add everything yeah. So the way I understand with the library mode, you shouldn't have a context of have a concept of externals. Like if you're bundling a library to be installed and consumed by other bundlers, you don't need to bundle. You're shipping a library, not an end application that needs to be bundled. That's my opinion. So tree shaking, browser targeting, all those things are great for a library, but bundling, that as of the last couple of years, all of a sudden people are starting to bundle libraries, and it doesn't make sense. Because if you want to do like npm patch or yarn patch package, you can't really patch dependencies if you're bundling everything, and there's a bunch of other issues. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I support that. I wonder if anyone in the community that's using graphical React as a package would take issue with that, given their current setup, or like maybe they would just need to change the way that their whatever app they're using it in, their bundler works.
They shouldn't have to. Yeah, it should just work because the dependencies are already installed. So if we ship it in a different way where it expects, instead it packages ESM module imports instead of a giant ESM bundled file that has all the modules inside the file, then the ESM module import should automatically just pick up based on dependencies that are installed when you install Graphical React. Otherwise, like with the way it is now, we could just remove all dependencies and just say it's a pre-bundled library and nothing else is installed by it because it bundles all of its dependencies. And that would be, in my opinion, that's a supply chain issue. That's in it because you're pre-bundling other projects for people ahead of time. So that means that you need to put out a release when one of your dependencies has a security chain, a security fix. Whereas if you don't bundle, then the patch update will automatically be resolved and automatically take care of itself. So it's also the difference of instant security fixes versus having to wait for our release to have a security fix.
Okay.
For libraries we don't even take care of. So that's kind of another issue. There's lots of supply chain issues from this. But yeah, it's something, I'll create a GitHub issue about it, and we'll hopefully address it as part of replacing Webpack. And
yeah, I think that if we can get, so I'm trying to move through just the agenda.
The only bundle that really matters where is actual bundling, like the only bundler bundle where we want to bring all the dependencies together is for the graphical min.js or graphical.js. Like that one, has to have everything but React and React DOM built in.
Don't we also ship a CDN bundle for graphical React?
We do, but I'm not sure what we use it for. Yeah. Does anyone use that CDN bundle version? I don't think so.
I can't imagine anybody would even bother, right?
Yeah, because the whole point of graphical React is for an SDK for building stuff. So at that point, you should be using a bundler for whatever you're using graphical React.
Maybe it was set up that way because we just wanted to have that CDN bundle option parity with what was going on with graphical. And
yeah, but the reason for a CDN bundle for graphical is leagues apart from graphical React.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Agree.
The reason there's a CDN bundle for graphical is because most of our users aren't JavaScript or TypeScript users, and they just want a simple way to look at set up graphical. I know that's shocking maybe to some people listening to hear that most of our users are not JavaScript or TypeScript users, but it's definitely the case, and we have to, it's part of our kind of MO of doing things, and it's why we have to explain a lot of things, and it's why we're not documented and advertised like other JavaScript or TypeScript libraries, because we're meant to serve mostly people outside of JavaScript or TypeScript communities. So there's certain lingo we can't get away with using. We have to include more steps with documentation. And yeah, just assume that some people that are trying to set up graphical have never even touched JavaScript barely, and so we have to make it, accessible. That's why I'm still talking about creating a Docker image for graphical. It seems silly, but people ask for it all the time, and there's duplicates out there that are poorly maintained sometimes, and so something.
I would love for the 3 people that really want a Docker image of graphical to jump in here and contribute to it.
Oh, I mean, people have been asking for years for it. So, but someone reserved the GraphQL Docker Hub org already for their own commercial purposes, and we were supposed to track that down. So we don't really have a place to publish to. But it's requested very often because a lot of people don't even want to have to deal with a web server or anything.
Right. Yeah.
And that's part of what made Playground popular, is you could just plug and play like that. And now in the age of Kubernetes, people just want an image that they point to a URL when their Kubernetes set up. That's it. So
yeah.
But I created a Apollo server example because that's been requested for a long time too, and we could ship a very simple plugin for Apollo server, and Yoga already has graphical. A lot of the servers already have it built in, but yeah, I mean, we could ship an Apollo plugin, but then we're just favoring the JavaScript and TypeScript ecosystem too much at that point. And
yeah, I don't.
Because then we need to have like just to balance it out, we would need to have like a Flask plugin, or something, just to be like, and then we just go down a road that's pretty complicated. Yeah.
There's code sandbox examples for doing that. I made one myself a few months ago for somebody on Discord.
I made one for Apollo, showing people how to create a custom plugin for Apollo server.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I also did that for somebody on Discord. Like, I mean, we have plenty of examples of that. It's relatively simple if you understand the system, and we could socialize that better. But I don't know that we want to like officially. Sorry, I didn't use an Apollo plugin. I just used graphical. I'd have to find it. I have to go.
It's a code sandbox, but it shows how to create an Apollo plugin that renders graphical. That's all. It's very simple. Now, some would consider this to be part of the parity with Playground, because Playground had middlewares for all the popular Node.js web servers, Express, Fastify, Happy, and one other one. I can't remember offhand. Koa, right? So there's middlewares for all of those, and then a render function library that was used by all those and other things out there that rendered the markup. So huge security issues with that, but notwithstanding, if you filter the HTML, it's fine. And then, yeah, so there's a whole, like, there are those who would basically say, well, if I can't install Playground as an Express middleware, if I can't install graphical with a simple Express middleware, then it doesn't have parity with Playground yet, But that's a whole thing. But that's part of why Playground adopted the special settings approach instead of using React props. So where they have a settings string that's a parsable JSON, right? But you pass it in as a whole string. And so it looks like VS Code settings, but they use that to configure the whole playground. And as our settings get more and more complex, I really, really still want to keep stressing that is probably the better example to go with, where instead of using props for everything, we have a service layer where you provide this settings JSON that maps to all of that.
Yeah, we have a proper props explosion happening right now. And I saw Thomas on an issue commenting, I don't know if it was this week or last, saying like, there's too many of these. no more, no thanks. And that's
but we can't do that. We add there's so many settings that people do need, and they're going to need more. We're going to have to provide a different approach. And as I've been saying for a couple of years now, Playground has the best pattern for this, because Playground, I've made a diagram and explained all this in a GitHub issue already that's marked as an RSC, but if we were to model Playground, we would have two components. We'd have graphical and graphical app. Graphical app would accept the fetcher options, would accept a JSON literal of settings, and then that would all get parsed into and be used to pass to the props of graphical component. This is like kind of was my architectural vision for 2.0. And then that would allow people to create either import the whole, like everything, bells and whistles, the plugins and everything, graphical or graphical app, or if they wanted something more to build something more purpose built, more customized, they would use just the graphical component and implement logic over there to load their fetcher and things like that. And the graphical React thing was meant to be an approach to that would prevent having to create these multiple service layers. So it created a service layer inside graphical component instead of creating the service layer on top of graphical component. But I still think there's a justification for having this service layer on top of graphical. But it might not be needed anymore. So, but just a thing to think about. And the Playground repo is really good prior art, I feel like, because a lot of the same kind of problems we're trying to solve were solved there in some degree. Some of them, at least. Yeah, it's interesting.
I mean, there's a reason why it was merged, or why it was supposed to be merged, because they've got great ideas over there that should eventually make their way into graphical.
Well, that's what I tried to do through this plugin, this proposal, but it's not what we ended up with.
Yeah.
I was trying to point out these are the things. Like I had a whole blog article about it and saying what features we were going to bring over from Playground first, and it was part of the roadmap and everything. It was all planned out, but we ended up going a different path, and we ended up not adopting this architecture that would make it very easy to have like an abstraction of abstracted concept of settings. It's more like VS Code's type like settings rather than using props for everything. So the idea was like that the service layer would then be used as supply data that would be used to generate the props for the graphical component. But so we could still do that, and we could still have both of those. So I would suggest looking at the Playground source if you get a chance to, and seeing how that part is set up, and then like also the Redux implementation might be inspiration for Zustan too. Seeing how they solve certain problems. But again, Playground Playground does have tabs, so there's some comparison there too. Yeah. So yeah, it might be interesting. Some of the Redux stuff is kind of boilerplate for something like that, but a lot of little edge cases, a lot of like, this is how this user setting was passed in, and they already handled things like schema change on polling and schema change notifications and stuff like that. And some of it's kind of broken though, because it's just I haven't had time to maintain Playground, and there's a lot to it. So
I mean, you're not supposed to be maintaining Playground.
Yeah,
right?
No, that's not. Yeah, I'm not supposed to be. I mean, technically, I am the only maintainer, but I'm not supposed to be maintaining it.
Yeah,
we adopted Playground, but
yeah, that door's been shut.
The reason we adopted Playground is because we said graphical is going to replace this.
Right.
Yeah. And so there's probably a few more things that people are expecting to be able to say that has happened. And then we can go all up in the playground issue queues and say, oh, this is closed. You can do this with GraphiQL now. You can do this with GraphiQL now. We'll get to do that someday. But in some cases we can, but in some cases.
I don't know. I mean, let's get through the graphical issues first. I think a lot of this has just been timed out, right? A lot of the issues and a lot of the PRs even they've just been timed out, whether it's because people have abandoned an effort and they or they switched to Apollo Sandbox Explorer, or they switched to Cake Pop or whatever. We don't have a way of quickly identifying who is still waiting. If anyone was still waiting for an issue to get fixed from 6 months ago or a year ago, I would imagine
the best way is to see how many subscribers there are. This is
I was going to
will not say anything, but you'll see. I
was going to suggest that we just do what we need to do to fix current issues so that it doesn't break, and focus our efforts on whatever we're going to do for 3, which is going to include making changes. And when, just like we had sort of planned for the 2.0 release, right? We talked about just getting it out and then just being on deck. And anyone like migrates up and it breaks all their stuff, then we're just there to help them, make that migration happen. I much prefer to do that than I do to like go through issues that are 3 years old and have to try to. It just seems like a little bit of a waste of time. Maybe that's just
well, I had gone through and picked issues that were old, that were part of the roadmap, that are like long-standing feature requests that we can address.
Those are feature requests, though, not bug. It's a category of issue.
You're saying that there's old bugs that still need to be triaged and stuff. Yeah.
I'm saying it's hard to tell whether it's a bug or whether it's someone that just wasn't using it correctly, and it was a prop that existed 2 years ago or was different 2 years ago. And
there's a lot of that, and there's always a lot of that, and
I think a lot of it, like I just responded to an issue from a few days ago, or somebody. So the GraphiQL Explorer plugin that we have just takes all the props from that plugin and exposes them through the Use Explorer plugin hook, right? That we use in the examples of how to use the plugin. And there's an Explorer is open prop that's a Boolean that exists on in the source code, because that's how it determines whether or not it should be open or closed. That's the shelf. But in our world, that prop, you can pass it through, but it doesn't do anything in our world because we control the visibility of the pane plugin view differently. So
right, because we don't do it on a Boolean status now.
There's a visible plugin prop. So there's like stuff like that I'm sure there are many issues that we just never got to over the years, that are things like that, where it's just
little things that we overlooked, and those are all things we can address, though.
No, I don't want to do that.
I
mean, it's if someone's not barking at us about it, if they're not, I think we socialize Discord plenty. We socialize like how to get into.
If you see that, like I've seen that bug about the GraphiQL Explorer plugin twice. So I feel like once you see the bug reported twice, we have to address it. That's kind of my rule of thumb.
That's not
especially a bug. The same amount of time.
Number one, that's not a bug. Number two, I've been telling people anything having to do with that Explorer plugin, if someone wants to jump in and fix it and it's a bug, great. Otherwise, any effort to address anything with that Explorer plugin should be put into building the new version of that plugin. It should be
true, yes. But also we need to make sure to deprecate the prop or whatever that people think they're supposed to use.
I mean, it's just a matter of like rewriting the type signature for that plugin, and doing an omit or partial or something, and only really using what we want to pass through. It just didn't get done, and I don't want to do it.
Yeah. So we just had to fix the plugin and our side of it. Yeah. So,
well, I mean, it's just not supported. Like the documentation for GraphiQL is there. Like the visible plugin prop for GraphiQL is documented. It's just it's just. The point was that there's just a lot of issues like that are it doesn't seem worth the time to address. If they're old, right? If they're new, we need to help. But if they're old, it just doesn't make sense to go back and figure.
I was just saying because I saw someone asking in Discord about this Graphical Explorer visibility issue recently, and what I find is if there's something that's like it's supposed to be documented, it's supposed to be fixed, but people can't seem to figure it out, and you see multiple people asking about the same thing, that means we need to fix something in the docs or examples or in TypeScript to make sure that people know what has changed or how it's supposed to work. Like that's to me an indicator is if like multiple people are using something wrong, that means that we need to fix something.
No, but normally I would agree, but this plugin specifically was a placeholder. Like we said out loud, this is a placeholder because we have plans to do the new one, and it's just like best effort in supporting it. If there's someone that wants it's not fixing that is not as complicated as some of the, not even close as complicated as some of the other stuff that we're planning on working on. So it's a great opportunity for someone to like first issue if they want to, jump in and help out. But I don't know. Let's talk about PRs that need to get merged in.
Okay.
So I know that there are 1, 2, 3. So Thomas has a couple that he opened up last week, 3017 and 3018. That would be nice, just to get merged in. What's this one from Benji? I don't think I've seen this yet.
Nice. Yeah, that's a good one. And as you can see, the canaries aren't releasing properly still because of the token. But yeah.
Should we, I guess maybe we shouldn't merge these in? Should we wait until Friday when we
can merge? I think we should keep merging and just let a big changelog build up. I think it's fine. Yeah, I don't think we really have a choice otherwise. Because now there's a whole changelog set for 2.3.0 that isn't going to get published. So when we do a 2.4.0 publish, that'll include everything from 2.3.0. So it's going to be a giant release anyways, and there's going to be some bugs with it. So because there's so many changes in the release, so including bug fixes. So yeah. Yeah, and there's a couple other important bug fixes. I think we can get a lot of these PRs merged before we have access to release again. And then we can watch everything integrate in the deploy previews and make sure that it's ready to release when we are ready to release again. So. Yeah, and I want to get your VPR merged and finish up that effort. Really want to get that out of the way, like that. And the state management PR are really bugging me. But there's also this is all leaving out a lot of things I want to do for the LSP, just in terms of the mono repo and the web graphical. Yeah.
I would say out of the two, right, out of the I'm just going to call it the tooling PR. It's 2925, getting into VTE, getting rid of Webpack, that one. Between that one and the state management, the alternative state management PR, one of them is clearly more important than the other, and that's the tooling one, right? Getting that foundation sort of relayed.
Oh yeah, definitely. I see that as something that's really a prerequisite for moving forward. We really can't even think about 3.0 while we have this build tooling. Because right now, this build tooling and the bundling of libraries is causing us lots and lots of headaches. So we really, like, we're getting bugs where the way we're bundling libraries in graphical React is causing issues when it gets bundled again by graphical using Webpack, or when it gets bundled by other tools. And so I think the solution there is to just not bundle the library, as we discussed. So I think, yeah, there's some major changes we need to make.
That would be separate than this PR, right? That would be one that we do separately so that we can track it separately.
I see it all as part of the same effort, though. Like we want to like, if we just replace Webpack with Vite, then we'll have to work around a bunch of other issues, which is Vite consuming Vite, a Vite bundle consuming another Vite bundle. There's ways to do it, but I've run into so many issues with this before, and it made the tooling even more painful. I think what we need is a separation of responsibilities. Yeah, like we will only do graphical in the library mode, and the others I think we can just do in a simpler way. Although graphical React really does push the limits because it includes SVG, it includes CSS modules, and a lot of things that traditionally need like a bundler type thing. So the other option is we could do library mode without bundling, which according to the Vite docs is, just set esbuild bundle false. And that's how you fix that problem. According to Vite, the Vite issue where someone's like, hey, I'm trying to use library mode with Vite, but for some reason it keeps bundling all the dependencies. And they're like, oh, well, just disable that.
Can you
person that's like, what?
Can you tell what issue is that on the VT repo?
797 day.
Wow, they have a lot. They are really cooking, aren't they?
Yeah.
7970.
Yeah. That's how you know a repo is popular, is when the issue and PR count is really high. And they have like a huge amount of open issues. You can just assume half those are duplicates. But yeah. So now this one looks like it has something to do with vtest and import meta vtest. So maybe this is a different issue.
That's not it.
But it's saying that it's in library mode, and what the thing is the person finds, this is a different issue then. Yeah.
That's not the right one.
Yeah.
So anyway, that PR is, I'm excited to see the work that you're doing to get that one in. And after that goes in, if we include the changes to graphical React, if it really like foundationally changes the dev and tooling environment for the mono repo.
I would love that. I would love to get back to where it was, where you could just run one command and watch the whole repo. It just, without project references, it seems really difficult, but we'll figure out a way to do it. WS Run allows you to do staged builds, where it will do builds based on your dependency tree. So, and we already are using WS Run, so I'm probably going to use that to run TS up, and TS up will build what changed, but that means creating a watcher for every workspace instead of with project references, you had one watcher for every workspace instead of one for
what
each.
we've talked about PNPM and
Yeah, PNPM. Yeah, the goal would be to move to PNPM.
which solves
But
this.
none of these tools have a workspaces run command on their own that does what we need, but WS run takes care of that no matter what package handler we're using. But I've used Yarn 3 workspaces. I've used PNPM workspaces. None of them out of the box will be able to solve this problem. We will need to use our own tooling to do a multi-workspace watch. That's totally doable. That's probably one of the easier parts. It'll just be how do we make it performant will be the more difficult part. Yeah. Yeah. Like it's hard to match project references because it's built into the TypeScript compiler and it's already meant to be super efficient. So we just have to find a way to build something custom or yeah, I don't know. Like we built our own Vite at the last company I worked at just because we couldn't use Vite. We couldn't use SWC, couldn't use TurboPack or Next just because of our own constraints. So we basically just built our own thing like Vite using ESBuild and Express and other tools.
I'm not particularly tied to Vite. It was
Oh yeah.
been a couple of like in progress PRs, and the big goal.
Well, I introduced it. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the big goal was just replacing Webpack because it was so far out of date, rather than like we all think Vite is the greatest thing in the entire world. It was
right.
more like,
It was just a quick way to get around that issue, and I just wanted to start working with a different bundler than Webpack. Yeah. So that was my fault for half introducing without replacing Webpack, but yeah, we can figure out some ways. I wish TurboPack was serviceable in a way that would be useful here, but it's not. Like there are no options or config file documentation or anything for TurboPack because it's built into Next and other tools. The best you can figure out is to like read the Rust source code and figure out how you're supposed to call it from JavaScript or look at the Next.js like underlying implementation. But yeah, I've tried the SWC ecosystem version of this and it was not, there was a lot of things lacking. It seems like it's really meant to be built for very specific purposes. You can't just use it off the shelf yet. So like TurboPack has a doc site, but there really isn't a lot about it. Like there's no way, so there's no such thing as a TurboPack config file from what I know. For example, I think you can only call it programmatically so far. There's not even, from what I can tell, a CLI for it. But again, it's all about reading the Rust source code and trying to understand it. Yeah. It mostly just documents like how it improves on Webpack and things like that, which is cool. But yeah, I wish we could just use TurboPack, but I don't know if we can. You know, it's just, yeah, I couldn't find a README. I couldn't find Markdown documentation. Even reading the Rust source code, I was just kind of not sure how to use it independently of Next, you know. So, and it looks like the distribution SWC files are the most popular way to download SWC. So I was trying to see, yeah, how does Next call the SWC repo, and how does it call TurboPack? You know, just trying to understand how all this works to see if we could adapt it to use TurboPack ourselves or for any other projects I'm working on. But I just don't see a way to use TurboPack on its own yet. But yeah, either way, Vite's fine. I think we just need to be more deliberate in how we use it. And
yeah, that's a good point.
like it's easy enough to just get set up and get started on a project with Vite, but that doesn't mean that the way we have it set up and that we're bundling it and that the way everything's configured is going to be happy. So yeah, we just need to make that happy, and we need to I think not bundle libraries unless we absolutely need to. And I think that will speed things up too once we do that, because then we don't even have to bundle plugins necessarily, or do we? That's a good question. That's when the bundling question gets really complicated, doesn't it? It's like, do plugins need to be bundled or not? The graphical React is external. I know it's just painful to think about. Either way, I think we can make it a simple thing where it's like a single command that you call from in the monorepo to bundle plugins, and there's one script for all of them.
If the plugins were ours, they were all ours, if they were all in our repository, which they're not, because there's the two OneGraph plugins that we're just basically wrapping with our own plugins. If they were ours, I would feel easy.
Oh, those don't count as plugins anymore. They might have called them plugins, but that was a wrapper around GraphiQL, and that was a different era, really. Yeah.
No, I'm saying that we have plugins in our repository that are wrappers around those plugins.
Oh, I think I see what you say. Yeah.
Right. We have two. We have a code exporter and the Explorer, which are just wrappers around their packages. Those old packages that haven't been updated in 4 years, just so that they're compatible with the plugin system that we have in GraphiQL version 2. If we didn't have that situation, if we only had plugins in our repository for which all the source code was ours, it was our UI, they were using GraphiQL React, they were using something else.
I still think the classic Doc Explorer should be this. That was my goal, was for that to be the first plugin.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I also agree. What I'm saying is that if it was all our code, based on previous conversations that we've had about bundle size of GraphiQL and how it kind of doesn't really matter because it's a developer tool and most people aren't really like getting it, it's not that big of a deal. I would feel more than comfortable just bundling them all along with GraphiQL and say that's it, right? That way, like when you just load GraphiQL, instead of having to pass a plugin into it, you just select from a list of options that we define as like optional default plugins, and it's just easy enough to toggle them on or off. That would be great. Unfortunately, like the way that, because we're stuck with these two older plugins and haven't built that ourselves, bundling that along with our code just seems like a bad idea for a number of reasons.
Yeah. I mean, there's one thing, there's bundling for NPM usage, and then there's bundling for the graphical JS bundle.
That's what I mean. It's bundling for using it in the reference graphical application.
The CDN bundle. So you're saying bundling it with plugins and the CDN bundle isn't advised because we don't really officially support those plugins. They're just there for compatibility. Okay.
Yeah.
I gotta check something on the stove. I'll be right back. Right. So yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I think that the bundling issue. I'm also going to work on those next examples for Monaco GraphQL. And yeah, and just merging small bug fix PRs and other improvement PRs that you can like validate, make sure they don't cause regressions and whatnot, just because we don't have a normal release cadence to kind of, more thoroughly test against, implementations in the wild as we make changes, as we usually do. I think it'll be okay. I think it's easy to think that we're going to stack up all these changes that will lead to a bunch of bugs, but I doubt that'll be the case. We'll probably get no more bugs in the normal release. So
Right. Since none of them are, I mean, there's a few PRs in that just don't require a change, that don't require a change set. So they're just going to roll up as line items, right?
Yeah, like the ESLint ones and all those. Yeah.
Well, we should talk to Dimitri about that. I don't know what the status is. I've been hoping that he was going to be able to make it to one of these meetings and just sort of give us an update on the status of all of that linting work that he's doing. I feel like they're passing, but I feel like there may be work that he still has to do on it. So
I think he would mark it as a draft. He's usually good about that.
Okay. I'm not gonna touch those ones just because I'm not totally sure.
But definitely, if you see PRs that are unfinished, you can just choose to convert to draft, and then that way we know which ones. I did that with your Vite one, for example, because it's still a Vite. So anything that's like draft or do not merge, we just make it a draft in GitHub, and then that way it's very clear to everyone that it's still in a draft state. Yeah.
Oh, of course. Yeah. I should have done that initially.
Yeah. I remember when that feature came out and people were like, just put it in draft state. And I'm like, what? Oh, you can do that now. Originally you couldn't convert it to draft from a normal thing, but now you can do that.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm gonna get up and take a shower and eat lunch because I've been up since 5 o'clock.
Oh my gosh. Oh dear.
Yeah, the European team.
Yeah. Wow.
I'm gonna
time zones.
I'm gonna dip a little bit early, but I want to just recap here real quick. I'm gonna put in an agenda item for 10 minutes for the working group meeting on Thursday, just to bring up GraphiQL and circle it around the group and see if anyone in the group has a need for us to attend more heavily to GraphiQL, and maybe they would like to devote some resources to doing so. It's that working group meeting is split into EU and there's 2 of them, right? What's on Thursday?
Yeah, it's I don't know which one I'm going to be able to go to, but if I don't make it to either, can you be the one to give the update about how we can't release yet?
I don't even know a lot of those details.
Oh, okay.
I would not be the right person to bring that
All right.
up.
Well, I guess I'll try to be there on Thursday then. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it's I think that's 6:30 CET Thursday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then the next one would be, I guess number 1 was, let's see, when was it? Anyway, I'm going to be there to talk about this GraphiQL thing. I'm going to put that agenda item in now.
Cool.
Okay. And I'll be in touch with you about some of the other stuff later this week as well.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good. I'm excited to work on this more. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Cheers.
Yeah. Cheers. Bye.